Thank you for joining us for this look at the best original reporting from KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Tribulsi. Coming up, investigating use of force by San Diego police. KPBS looks into why officers are rarely held accountable despite hundreds of reported incidents. It's already back to school time in the South Bay. How are families adjusting to later start times for older students? And a celebration of life. San Diego remembers a pioneer of African-American style and fashion. This weekend brings the first full-scale Comic-Con since 2019. We have two stories, including Beth Accomando's advice for this year's event. Kitty Alvarado met some of the early arrivals for Comic-Con 2022.
Where else can you see a steampunk character, Aquaman, and Moon Knight just hanging out? San Diego Comic-Con, that's where. They and tens of thousands of their friends are back in person for the first time since 2019, when the pandemic put the brakes on this 4-day multi-genre entertainment convention.
It's like having a best friend and they have to go away for momentarily.
Valentino Macias from Bonita has been coming to Comic-Con since he was 7 years old. He's 18 now and glad to be back to an event that means so much.
It means that you're able to be the characters or the people that you grew up with that help you throughout your lifetime.
Christian Ramos from Texas can't believe he's back. He can't wait to step inside the convention center and take everything in.
I'm just getting goosebumps even thinking about how amazing this place is and how special this little, section of San Diego is to all of us.
Everyone will have to be vaccinated or show proof of a negative test and wear a mask indoors. Rebecca Yusi, who's been coming for years, says cosplaying with a pandemic is not easy, but she's up for the challenge.
Spider-Man and Deadpool, they have it easy, right? It's all built in. So for the rest of us, it's a real challenge to our creativity. How would I incorporate a mask into what I'm wearing? So this whole 4 days, every one of my different cosplays, 6 cosplays in 4 days, all of them have a handmade mask with a KN95 inside.
Wednesday is preview night for the lucky ones who got badges to get a sneak peek. The event officially goes from Thursday to Sunday with industry events throughout the city. And UC has advice for first-timers like me.
Drink lots and lots of water, wear comfortable shoes, and be the light you want to see in the universe.
One of the things that has come to define Comic-Con in recent years is the 6,000-seat panel room known as Hall H. To some attendees, it represents that Comic-Con is sold out to Hollywood and grown too big. To outsiders, it's that annual insanity of people lining up and camping out overnight at the San Diego Convention Center. And to the people waiting in line, well, even they have a hard time explaining why they do it.
You stare at the sidewalk, you're staring at the gravel for so long, you go into sensory deprivation. Then, if you get lucky, you get into something, and then you see something awesome, and then it's like sensory overload, and then you're just like, it feels awesome that you're part of something. I'm here for the spectacle.
Trying to get into Hall H to be part of that spectacle requires special ops skills.
Now, if you Google me, almost nothing comes up, and I like that.
Brooklyn agreed to share an insider perspective, as long as I didn't use her full name. She runs one of the multiple Hall H line groups.
I read on Reddit that their group is 100 people. It kind of intensified where you had to be more organized because everybody around you was also being more organized. So we ended up getting on a Google spreadsheet.
Attending Comic-Con now requires tactical skill if you want to get an exclusive toy or get into Hall H when Marvel has a panel. But it's worth it, says Brooklyn.
We're all going to the same thing and we're all hyper. And then when you get in that room and you've worked that hard and you're with all your friends, when Tom Hiddleston walks out dressed as Loki.
I am Loki.
The crowd.
Of Asgard.
The sound of the crowd.
The arena they call Hall H.
But when everybody's camped out and then sat in that room all day long for that Marvel panel, and they finally start telling you everything that's going to happen for the next few years, the feel of the crowd is just something that you won't get anywhere else.
Say my name!
But not everyone gets that.
My husband thinks I'm crazy. He still doesn't understand why I want to do this. He's at home with our daughter.
Some blame Twilight moms for ruining Comic-Con and making Hall H inaccessible. But those Twilight moms were just geeky fans like all those who attended before them. They just happened to be older women and teenage girls, a demographic that had not been seen in such large numbers before. But Comic-Con attendance overall has been growing, and that's why it's important to be prepared.
This year we're much more prepared. We brought chairs, umbrellas, sleeping bag, that kind of thing. We didn't really anticipate sleeping.
So do your research online, read through the program schedule, and make practical plans. That means pack snacks and water, deodorant if you want to be considerate of others, and wear comfy shoes because you can easily do 30,000 steps on the exhibit floor. But the most important thing to remember is that Comic-Con can be whatever you make it. You can do panels or shop or game or cosplay. Just remember to have geeky fun.
Figure out what you're into. What are you comfortable with? If you're not comfortable sleeping out, that's fine.
But if you do want to wait in line, embrace it as an opportunity to be with people who love the same things as you.
It's really a lot of fun. There's a lot of camaraderie that you build up with people. Like Joey said, even people that you don't know that you meet that have been in line. And everybody else back home, they think I'm nuts. But these girls,
we found like-minded people.
We're soulmates. We get each other. We understand it. You know, we get excited about the same things. So it's really fun.
For many of us, Comic-Con is our happy place. In other words,
Chewie, we're home.
Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
We have more Comic-Con coverage at kpbs.org. And you can follow KPBS on Instagram and YouTube for more pictures and video throughout the weekend. Warning, this next story contains graphic images. Between Pride and Comic-Con, it's a busy time for San Diego police. In the event they have to use force on the job, a KPBS review of hundreds of incidents shows they're unlikely to be fired or even suspended. Investigative reporter Claire Tregesser looks at why it almost never happens.
Sheriff's Communications, Dispatcher 6, can I help you?
Hi, this is Fox over at Chilliwack PD. I got an RP that's calling actually from Spring Valley and got connected with us on 911. It's about a suspicious person, possible prowler, and I've got the caller on the line now.
At just before 11 p.m. one evening in August 2012, a woman called the sheriff's department. Deputy Luke Berhalter and his partner were dispatched to the scene. They walked up to the house but didn't identify themselves or call out to the homeowner. Berhalter drew his gun.
Like I said, my gun was in front of me at a low ready. I don't recall how far my arms were extended. Something pushed down on my gun. Something made contact with my gun. And as that happened, my gun discharged.
This is what Berhalter later told investigators.
As soon as my firearm discharged, I think I said, "Oh," or something like that. I realized that a person was there. And then I was able to see that it was a woman and that she was still standing, but she was leaning, she was bent over at the waist. And I think she was maybe holding her abdomen or holding her arm.
He had shot the homeowner who called police. The woman was wounded on her chest and arm and was taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. The department called Berhalter's actions, quote, careless and imprudent, but he was not fired or suspended. He only received a written reprimand to go in his file. The light discipline Berhalter received is a trend, according to a KPBS analysis of 475 police use of force incidents. In fact, more than 97% of the time, officers received no discipline whatsoever, the analysis shows. And when officers were disciplined, it was sometimes for actions other than shooting or using force against a suspect. And most of the time, they were back on the street after short suspensions, if they were suspended at all. For example, San Diego Sheriff's Deputy Kyle Klein was disciplined after kicking a man in the face during an arrest. However, his discipline was for failing to document it. And San Diego police officer Elliot Simon, who tackled a man and knocked him unconscious, was suspended for 1 day for failing to turn on his body camera.
How many people are ever suspended or disciplined in any meaningful way? Not a lot.
DeRay McKesson is a civil rights activist with Campaign Zero.
Imagine if you had a job where it literally was just impossible to get in trouble, to be held accountable. That's what policing is.
Experts say there are a number of reasons why officers so often escape serious punishment, including the way police policies are written and how investigations are done. But topping the list is the strength of police unions, says San Diego attorney Eugene Iredale.
The power of the police unions, contract negotiations in which disciplinary procedures are negotiated, and the natural tendency of an organization and people to try to protect its own. For whatever reason, they get due process.
The San Diego Police Officers Association didn't respond to a request for comment. Police investigations of use of force have historically been done internally within the department.
Way too often you'll have investigating internal affairs officers who have a deep identification with and sympathy for the officer whose conduct is under investigation.
That said, San Diego law enforcement agencies are instituting reforms, especially after protests over police violence swept the country in 2020. The departments announced in April that they'll investigate each other when an officer shoots and kills someone. So the sheriff's department will investigate a police shooting and vice versa. Police use of force expert Travis Norton welcomes the change, but says departments already did thorough investigations.
And I understand that our critics would say, hey, you guys can't police yourselves. In my 24 years, there's not this big thing covering up stuff. We don't want that. We don't want that. That is not what we want. We want to maintain legitimacy with our communities. It's so important, especially now.
Some activists have long called on District Attorney Summer Stephan to charge officers for past shootings. But she says there is rarely a reason to do so.
In the time that I've been here, I feel that every single case has received our full attention, our best experience, and that we've tried to provide as transparent of a process as possible. But I think the voices should keep coming. You know, if I lost a loved one to a police officer, I would want more answers and probably would never stop asking them.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
In a statement, the San Diego Police Department said shootings are incredibly scrutinized and, quote, while we are not perfect, time and time again, the documents are showing the professionalism and courage of SDPD officers during incredibly dangerous situations. Public schools in Chula Vista, Bonita, National City, and surrounding communities are already welcoming kids back to school. One big change this year is the schedule for older students. KPBS education reporter M.G. Perez was there for the first day to see how it's going.
The buses are rolling again, and there's time for a goodbye kiss and a picture-perfect moment on this first day of classes here at Castle Park Middle School.
Are you ready?
I'm kind of nervous.
I'm nervous too. Oh my gosh, you're going to be great.
Bill Walsh is the principal here. He and his staff are committed to keeping their 750 students safe and to teaching them lessons in respect and responsibility this semester.
And that's part of that transition in middle school, is making the choices that now you come as a young adult to make so that you can be more successful.
This morning, parents in the Sweetwater Union High School District had some extra time to get their kids to school. The California legislature decided that starting middle and high school classes later each morning will contribute to a student's success. This is the first school year that the new state law is in effect. It states that middle schools cannot begin before 8 a.m. and high schools can't start before 8:30 a.m., more than an hour later than prior to the COVID pandemic.
I think it's good because I finally got I have the chance to get ready, but also I don't like the new schedule they have for after school.
A later start for these students could mean more sleep and more time to get ready to learn. It also means their school day doesn't end until 3:30 or 4 p.m., pushing extracurricular activities even later. State lawmakers consider the late start a health issue, impacting the well-being of students. But the new law also has a significant impact on their families, too.
if you're rushed, you get to school, you're tired, you don't feel like doing anything, it's just, no, late starts is the business. This is what we should have been doing a long time ago. I don't know why. I think they should have put everybody on banker's hours.
It's going to be a little bit harder for me, to be honest.
Why?
Because I have another kid in elementary, and it's gonna mess up with their schedule and my work as well.
Many of these parents drop off their kids early to get to work on time, so now they need childcare prior to school. The San Diego Foundation, which specializes in solutions to problems faced by underserved families, commissioned a study by the University of San Diego's nonprofit institute.
Childcare is very much linked to workforce development, and if you don't have, good quality childcare options, then families can't find and maintain stable employment.
The USD study found 75% of parents don't have the child care they need. So the first day of school could be just the beginning of another challenging year. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Most campuses in the San Diego Unified School District are still in summer break, but for those currently in session and in district offices, mask wearing is back due to a spike in COVID cases. Once again, here's KPBS education reporter MG Perez.
Here at Golden Hill Elementary, you can see students still wearing masks as they are dismissed from summer school classes. They spent the morning inside, required to wear a mask while they learned. It takes some getting used to again, especially for Jude Seidel and his brother Weston. What was the hardest part?
That I had to pull it back up when I was done eating.
Do you like wearing a mask?
No.
No? Tell me why.
Because it makes my face sweaty.
The risk of catching COVID and the number of confirmed cases in San Diego County jumped significantly last week, prompting the Centers for Disease Control to elevate the transmission threat warning to its highest level. That triggered San Diego Unified's indoor mask mandate at all school campuses and district offices.
The analogy that we use is when it rains, you put your umbrella up, and when it stops raining, you can take it down.
Richard Barrera is the school board trustee leading the district's COVID protections and protocols plan. The latest surge was expected.
When we hit certain thresholds, then we ramp up our safety precautions. And I think that has kept students and staff safe.
Whether the indoor mask mandate continues into the fall semester is still to be determined. It will depend on the county's number of COVID cases and hospitalizations in August. Meanwhile, everyone must mask up inside everywhere for the next couple of weeks. When it comes to COVID vaccinations, the school board has delayed its mandate, requiring vaccinations for eligible students 16 and up until July of next year. All employees still must be fully vaxxed in order to keep their jobs, and new hires this summer must provide proof of vaccination before they can start. Back at Golden Hill Elementary, Jim Oliveri is not convinced his grandsons Jude and Weston are extra protected at all.
I don't think the mask helps at all. In fact, they just went, their parents are from Iowa, and they just flew to Iowa a month ago. Both wore the masks with their mother, wearing a mask, and the three of them came down with COVID.
We can report none of them were hospitalized with serious symptoms. And so the debate continues, along with the mask wearing. MG Perez, KPBS News.
It's $1 million view that might not be around for too much longer, at least not from the seat of a moving train. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson checks back on the dilemma in Del Mar over its coastal bluffs and how much should be spent to deal with our changing climate.
To our south is the beginning of 2 miles of a railroad track that runs right along the very top of this coastal bluff.
Del Mar Councilmember Terry Gasterland is taking in the sweeping view on top of the cliff that has grabbed so many headlines recently.
A big collapse could happen anywhere along this bluff at any moment in time. That's our problem right now.
And that's trouble for train tracks that skirt the coast along the top of the bluff. Collapse in 1941 deposited a freight train on the beach below. Recent bluff collapses present an ongoing threat one of the nation's busiest rail corridors. The $68 million project calls for pilings to be driven deep into the bluff. That would secure the track foundation, and soon-to-be-built seawalls will keep the ocean at bay. But the cost is bigger than just money.
That bluff stabilization project is going to bury 49,000 square feet of current, open, sandy beach along Del Mar. And it's going to do it in a way that at high tide, when the tide meets the seawalls, there's no beach left.
Maintaining the rail line is important to a lot of people. The Los Angeles to San Diego track serves some 2 million passengers a year. It is the second busiest urban rail corridor in the nation. The North County Transit District's Chris Orlando says the train tracks help reduce the region's carbon footprint.
Our coaster line is the region's most effective reducer of vehicle miles traveled. So each coaster passenger is more than 26 VMT miles reduced. So really effective way to keep folks off the road and onto transit.
Orlando says the freight train also keeps 24,000 trucks off local highways.
Those services and what they mean to the region are significant and critical. And so anytime you have a disruption of any period of time, it has an impact on our region. And so, making sure that the resiliency of that infrastructure remains constant is really important to the San Diego region.
That's why another plan, moving the tracks inland, is so appealing. But there are challenges there too. Moving the tracks requires a tunnel under Del Mar, project with a price tag close to $3 billion.
Is it a cost worth paying? And the answer is absolutely yes.
San Diego Association of Government CEO Hassan Ikrada says preserving the rail corridor through Del Mar helps meet his agency's commitment to mass transit.
It is all about making our transit as a viable option for people to use. It doesn't mean that we want to force people out of their car. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to leave their car. But if you provide a decent option, maybe 10% of our residents will use it, and therefore will free capacity in the highway system.
$300 million in the just-signed state budget will help pay for crucial environmental work and design plans to move the tracks inland. Ikrada hopes that leads to a shovel-ready project in just a couple of years. But $300 million falls far short of what could be a $3 billion price tag. Congressman Mike Levin says the recently passed bipartisan federal infrastructure law was designed for projects like this.
There are a couple of big buckets of money, one for resilience and another for transit. And my team is going to work very closely with all of our stakeholders in the state and the federal level to make sure that we are aligned and we are working towards trying to get this project done for all the residents of our region.
Levin says the eroding bluffs have already forced the rail corridor to shut down intermittently, and the region feels the impact.
Every month you shut it down is roughly $100 million economic impact to our greater region because of, again, the economic importance each year of that corridor.
Terry Gasterland hopes the pressure and opportunity will make the track relocation project a reality for Del Mar. She says everyone wins.
We get double tracking on a corridor that's poised to grow. We get safe freight and passenger conveyance along tracks that are not on a crumbling bluff anymore. So we get security and we get solidity.
These tracks will be gone by 2030 if everything goes as planned. They'll be located inland. But if the schedule drags out, they'll have some extra time because the temporary fixes will secure the bluffs for 30 years. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
San Diegans have said goodbye to a man whose legacy goes far beyond our city. You might not know the name Willie Morrow, but his work connected with generations of African Americans. KPBS reporter Jacob Baer has some of his remarkable story.
Willie Morrow was many things: a friend, father, and entrepreneur. He was also an internationally renowned black hair care stylist, whose name became synonymous with the Afro pick. Morrow created it after seeing a similar handmade comb a neighbor brought home from Africa. He took that inspiration and started mass-producing the Afro pick in the 1960s. Morrow passed away on Wednesday, June 22nd in his San Diego home, and Friday, a celebration of life service was held in his honor at the Bayview Baptist Church of San Diego.
Dr. Willie Morrow was the epitome of a BMW, a black man working. He worked, and he was an example of what it means to be a person involved in the community.
Morrow built and established his own California curl business in the late 1970s on Market Street in San Diego. The two-story building houses barbershop, salon, and publication company, where he printed a newspaper and operated a radio station.
Dr. Morrow wanted to preserve the community. He wanted to be an epicenter for people working together through outlets like 92.5 and the Monitor newspaper.
His status rose over time, and he styled hair for people like Judge Earl Gillum, the first black judge in San Diego County, and Basketball Hall of Famer Michael Jordan. The Department of Defense even enlisted Morrow to teach and cut hair on military bases and in war zones, which led him to write several books on hairstyling and barbering techniques. He inspired many black entrepreneurs locally and beyond.
As I saw this big black Afro pick out in front of this beautiful green building, he was a young entrepreneur. He sowed a seed in me.
The museum at California Center for the Arts in Escondido curated an exhibit to showcase Morrow's accomplishments in 2016. Now, there's an effort underway to get a street named in his honor. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
A reminder, you can find all of our content on the KPBS YouTube page. We also live stream episodes of KPBS Evening Edition, that's weeknights at 5. And we hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Thank you for joining us.